This crowd rises to its feet. Vaccaro slammed it home. Garland left wing, 3-ball. Perfect! Garland run of the lane, lob to Mobley. Pow! And Allen blocked the shot at the rim. Pow! With the left hand and a foul.
Welcome to the Chase Down Podcast, part of the Cavs Media family. I'm your host, Justin Rowan. The Chase Down is presented by Fubo, the official streaming partner of the Cavs. Watch over 350 channels of live sports and TV, including FanDuel Sports Network without cable. There's no cost and no commitment. Try for free at FuboTV.com/Cavs. The Cleveland Cavaliers ended their road trip with a W in Portland. No Donovan Mitchell, no problem, and no overtime. Last time the Cavs played the Blazers, overtime was necessary. This time, they closed them out in the fourth quarter. Big performances from Darius Garland, Evan Mobley looking like Defensive Player of the Year, Jarrett Allen having a strong fourth quarter, and someone who always brings his best is my co-host, Carter Rodriguez. Carter, how you doing, buddy?
I don't know about that.
No, you do.
I don't know about
sell yourself short.
all that. I'm doing good. It was nice to see the Cavs win, and I'm going to take it at a weird angle to start. We didn't talk about this at all yet. We haven't talked about this game almost at all, even privately. And my weird angle here is I think it's good that the Cavs only took 27 threes.
Okay.
Not because I'm someone who's, in perpetual freak out mode about, the state of the 3-point game and being too reliant on threes. But I do think it was nice that the team collectively said, hey, we haven't been hitting at a crazy high rate. Let's get to the paint. We've got a team that plays a lot of pressure on the ball, but if we get past them, we're going to be, facing a deep dropping Donovan Clingan for the most part, or a not crazy mobile Duop Reith for our 48 minutes of action. And we're fine with that. We're fine. We can get into the teeth of this defense. We can get consistent buckets, and we don't need to get up 43 pointers to have a good offensive rating. And I don't think it's the be all end all, but I do think it's a nice reminder for them. No, you can have a dominant game without needing to shoot the cover off the ball. And they did shoot very well in their limited attempts. But part of me is well, that's kind of also part of it, right? That, you really took mostly the ones that were really, really clean and the ones that really were in great rhythm that you just couldn't turn down. And I don't feel like they even turned down a tremendous amount of threes either. I think I really liked their offensive game plan in this one.
Yeah, it's not often that you see a team takes 25 threes more than the Cavs do in a game. For the Cavs to put up 27 and for the Blazers to put up 52, that's remarkable. And there were stretches where it felt like, man, the Blazers are just so hot. When Matisse Thybulle is hitting a career high in three-pointers made, you're like, is this another one of those bad kind of shooting variance games that the Cavs just can't seem to find any luck on this trip? But what ended up happening was they didn't actually hit that many of them. They just happened to have taken 52. So you notice the ones that they made. And I was a little surprised that they were able to get into the interior at will. Particularly with no Donovan Mitchell, you expected a heavy dose of Kamara on Darius.
What you got?
And Kamara is, honestly, when you look at what he's done over the season, he's got an all defensive case. He is that level of defender, even if he doesn't get recognized for it because they're not a playoff team. I do think that he is that level of a defender. So for Darius to go up against a very long, terrific point of attack defender, someone we've seen give him trouble at times as well, if you think back to that first game against Portland, for him to navigate and basically have the freedom of movement that he did, I thought it was really impressive.
No, go ahead.
It also makes me think back to our conversation on the last podcast where we were saying, how would we like to see them win when you're looking at this stretch where they continue to have, so much travel, not a lot of rest. You can tell it's having an effect on these guys. And for them to have a not great defensive first quarter, start to crank up the effort on that end of the floor as the game progressed, but continue to hunt for good shots, not settle for the three-pointers as they had at times throughout this road trip. I felt that their process was so much healthier, and I came away from that game feeling really good about their effort.
Yeah, and I will acknowledge it's easy to feel good about the process when they shoot 44% from three.
Yeah.
If they had an 8 of 27 night and this is a much closer game or a loss, then, maybe me and you are like, God, the offense is in trouble. Those 4-3 extra threes can be the difference between those two reactions. But to your point, I just felt like they were back to getting, I think what the hallmark of the beginning of the season for me, and what really the vast majority of the season till March, and maybe a little bit with the exception of January, which was their other cold shooting month, which, no surprise, was their other worst month of the year from a win-loss record perspective. But the hallmark of the season is that I felt like they've gotten to whatever look they've wanted. And they have dictated the terms of the game offensively. I think that's one of the reasons that when they've played Boston, I have gotten grumpy with their starts, is because I felt like they've not done that, in some of those matchups. And I do feel like at some point in this March, with everyone pressing and, the three guards that, the three lead ball handlers on the team all in, mired in pretty rough shooting slumps, it just felt like the rhythm was gone. The imposition of the offense wasn't there for them. And I do feel like they definitely brought that in this game. They had a real clarity of purpose. Each possession felt worthwhile to watch.
Yeah, and it wasn't a perfect game by any stretch. I thought Jarrett really struggled the first few quarters. I was impressed with him in the fourth quarter. Like, I felt like he was a big part of those last 7 minutes where I believe it was the last 7 minutes that the Cavs did not allow a made field goal. The only points Portland got came at the free throw line. It was a very physical game. It seemed like the refs basically made a decision that, hey, we're going to let a lot go and we want to get out of here. We're playing this game basically with a running clock.
I think those boys had a red eye.
No blood, no foul. Like, we're going to get out of here at an appropriate time.
There was a stretch where there were 4 straight possessions on either side of the ball where a guy got absolutely decked in that fourth quarter. It was, I liked it, to be clear. I'm not being critical. I like a little physicality. I like a little rough play being allowed to go, especially like if we're going to be people who complain about the grifters getting rewarded, we definitely have got to be okay with, a little roughness getting let go. And
honestly, it's my preferred style. Like,
but it was notable. It was definitely notable that they wanted it.
Yeah, I think the ideal spot is a well officiated FIBA game. I think sometimes we get a little too caught up with glorifying FIBA officiating when sometimes it's just, hey, these refs aren't as good and they're like missing a lot of things. A well officiated FIBA game where you're allowing physicality, what I like about it is it just clarifies what a foul actually is. When you're allowing a higher baseline of foul, there's no longer that interpretation of, okay, well, why does he get a little ticky-tack call while, this guy's drawing blood? You don't have that. And I liked how it was officiated. Again, I thought Darius was a big part of setting the tone in this game. And for it to be a very physical game against a team that's been playing very well defensively, that's had some impressive wins over this stretch, that's trying to rally around this end to the season and kind of solidify an identity as a team that they can build off of in the future, I thought it was a quality win, particularly the last game of a long road trip. That's a tough one to get. With no Donovan Mitchell, I thought Darius set the tone. It was great to see the floater going in at the rate that it did. The way that he was able to leverage that in-between game and the floater to create opportunities at the rim, I thought was great. Really making Donovan Clingan commit and make decisions in space and then punishing those decisions. I thought he did a terrific job of that. And then, of course, when Darius is creating those types of opportunities, that just opens up things for everybody else. And you see the great big-to-big passing. You see, the secondary playmaking from guys like Max Strus, Sam Merrill, Ty Jerome, all come into play. And I just felt it was a very, very healthy game from the Cavs.
Yeah, I mean, to the Darius point, you wondered at the beginning, in the first, he has a bunch of turnovers in that first quarter and in that first half, and you're like, uh-oh, is this going to be one of those sloppy games where they're just not sharp? But like, I do feel like he really did like button it up. Obviously took over the game down the stretch. The floater being back is really, really important. Mm-hmm. And so much of with Darius, I do feel like it's getting to the right spot for the floater. He tried that 15-footer with like 4 or 5 minutes left. It's like, brother, that's a really hard shot.
Yeah.
Like that's like, I get it. I get that he's comfortable taking it, but like that's like probably a 30% type of floater. Whereas a lot of the floaters he was hitting, he was using that misdirection. He was using clinging in the deep drop and making him commit before he went up, or confusing and freezing him in his shoes and just getting what basically was an open layup like no one was on the floor, And I feel like, I have always felt like Darius is a Steph Curry type of finisher where it's the leveraging of the panic elsewhere that he does so good at his best that gets his percentages up at the rim at up to where they've been this year. I don't think he's a Kyrie type of finisher. And he's certainly not one of these big, strong, physical guards who can create angles using his body. A lot of it is using that freeze game, using the psychological game, using the fear of the pull-up and the jumper to give himself a big-ass runway on the way to the hoop. And I felt like he did a very, very good job of manipulating Portland's defense in this one.
Yeah. Yeah, and I continue to like seeing him, attack the glass, get a bunch of rebounds. 5 rebounds in this game. I think he had 8 against Utah. Chipping in those different ways. It's nice to see. I think it's a good sign of his overall health that, hey, he's getting to his spots. He's getting into the paint. He's contributing on the glass. He's getting steals. All of that kind of stuff just goes to show, hey, he's in a pretty good spot physically right now. And the worst of the slump seems to be behind us.
Yeah.
You look at the last 5 games that he's played. He's shooting 47% from the field, 33% from 3. So maybe that's, the one area that you kind of look at. But that 33% is more of like a regular ebbs and flows of 3-point shooting rather than, hey, why is Darius's percentages like 35% from the field, 20% from 3, like the kind of horrific splits there. And hey, 91% from the free throw line too. So even that's bouncing back. I feel very good about the way that he's playing, and it's nice to see him bounce back. I continue to keep an eye on Jarrett. He looks tired out there. It was nice to see him dig deep and have a good fourth quarter. I'm encouraged by the fact that it seems like the last couple games he's been playing without the hand wrap. So obviously that has kind of progressed. I don't think he'd be playing without it if it hasn't progressed. So that's a good sign. But I know he's got the goal of playing 82 games. But I'm also, I guess I'm hopeful that, hey, if that's going to be your goal to play 82 games, it'd be nice if we could put some games away so you don't have to play fourth quarters and get yourself some rest here.
Yeah, I mean, and in fairness, he only played 28 minutes in this game. And Evan being there is very, very helpful for that. He's out against the Spurs for a rest game. So, no rest for the weary for Mr. Allen. Yeah, I think Jarrett, like, I don't know if it's a physical tired or a mental tired from him. Because, a couple of the mental mistakes have been pretty jarring too, some really audacious passes that like have no shot. Throwing it right to the opposition because he just doesn't see him. Yeah, I think he'd probably tell you he's not playing his best ball this season. Like he's in a bit of a survival stretch. For lack of a better word, I still feel like the finishing is pretty good, and when he's catching the ball on the move, I do think it's a lot of the soft stuff that isn't great for him right now.
Yeah,
it's the being a step late. It's trying to fight for a rebound, but already being dug out of position before you get there. I mean, boy, was he wrestling some bears on this West Coast trip, though. You know, I'm not sure you have much of a tougher stretch than physically than Orlando up and down the roster, then Zubac, Valanciunas,
and then Klingon, who might be the largest human in the NBA.
I know.
Like, I know Wemby's taller, but Klingon is like 7'3" and 500 pounds. That man, if he had like great touch, he'd be unstoppable. But
no kidding.
Thankfully, he doesn't.
Phoenix is your one respite, and then you do Walker Kessler into Donovan Klingon. Like, that is just like 5 out of 6 just mondo dudes that you got to wrestle with. And even in the game before that, it's Zach Edey, who's a big guy, not quite as physically imposing, I feel, as the other guys in terms of like the fight that you have to have when you go up against him. But like, so, you know, I definitely think you're seeing that wear on him a little bit. And you know, part of that's just his job, in fairness. I don't want to pretend like I'm not gonna like I can already hear skeptics being like, oh, boo-hoo, the center has to guard other centers who are famously big and strong. Like, I get it, but like, it is quite the run of tough dudes that are like kind of not Jarrett's preferred dudes to play against in the first place. You know, I think we can acknowledge that. Like, he'd much rather play another, you know, a different archetype of player than these dudes who just beat him up for 48 minutes. And I thought his battle was fine. And I do like that he answered in the fourth quarter with a really, really strong fourth quarter. And at this point, you know, only time will tell on the playing all 82. I think, you know, most folks that we talk to, you know, it seems like most of us are like, it'd be okay if you sat Jarrett. But you know, I also get why you would set that goal for yourself. And like, if you're this close and you're healthy, and you know, I mean, the real question is, if he takes one game off, is he going to be meaningfully better rested for the postseason when he's not hurt? Like, that's where like me wanting him to rest, like, and then actually thinking through like the positive implications of it, it feels pretty flimsy to ask him to give up on this goal just so I could be like, well, at least you got a Wednesday off in late March. Like, I just don't know if that's going to matter.
It reminds me of, you know, the Darius conversation when he was in, you know, the bottom of the slump here, where we're like, if he's fine physically, it's basically just us feeling better and feeling like we have some control over the situation, where it's get him a day off, where you know, having a day off in a back-to-back or something like that, it's not giving you a whole lot more rest than you have normally. So
and if he were nursing a soft tissue injury like a hammy or something like that, this conversation's very different, right? Yeah, but like, totally. For all intents and purposes, doesn't seem like he's hurt.
Yeah, and I think some of this ties into what we talked about before, which is that when things don't go well, we lean back on our priors. Like, I've seen a lot of people freaking out about giving up offensive rebounds and playing against these big physical, you know, centers. And it just brings back unpleasant memories, some Knicks PTSD there. The funny thing is, you know, people will say, well, we need to go get ourselves a 7'4" giant to come in off the bench and deal with that. Most of the time when we are playing a Donovan Klingon or a Walker Kessler or Jonas Valanciunas, like, we won the Jonas minutes by 17. We won the Kessler minutes by 40. We won the Klingon minutes. We won the minutes against Zubac, even though we got blown out in that game. We won those minutes. But because it ties into, you know, how that Knicks series felt, it gives people the easiest scapegoat. We can just say, oh, you know, like, they got an offensive rebound here and a putback, and that's why we lost. Where in reality, a lot of those kind of plotting bigs that play a style that they just want to go right through you, know what they aren't great at? Defending in space. And usually when you're playing the Cavs, even when the Cavs aren't playing their best offensively, that's something that we can exploit at a level much higher than they can exploit on the offensive glass. Darius cooking Donovan Clingan or Walker Kessler in space, that is a trade-off I'm willing to make. That's why we won the Jonas minutes by 17. That's why we swept the Raptors every single time we played them, because we're like, well, guess what we're going to do? We're going to make Jonas Valanciunas defend in space. The formula was the exact damn same. So I understand why it's frustrating, and I think I want to get into the whole rebounding thing a little bit later, because I do think there's some meat on that bone. I think there's things worth discussing, but I do find that too frequently Jarrett gets kind of put, he ends up being the whipping boy there, and too much of the blame gets assigned to him when it's a more kind of comprehensive issue, and something that, the points of failure usually go beyond just the center position.
Like it was 2 years ago,
Right.
Or was it 2 years ago? Yeah, 2 years ago. It is always more complicated. I'm glad you want to talk about rebounding, because I was pulling up some stats while you're talking about it, but we'll get there. We'll get there, brother, man. I got to ask, just in general, we left that Utah game and we podcasted after, and I was kind of expecting like a more positive podcast, to be honest, coming out of that Utah game. Like, hey, we won, we got off the schneid, great news. And we were still pretty critical. Like, I don't think we felt like that Utah game represented as big of a shift in the team's play as maybe we wanted. I'll speak for me. You can confirm or deny this. I felt like they played okay and beat up a team that is not trying terribly hard to win games against Utah. Do you feel different about the Portland win than you felt about the Utah win?
Oh, for sure. To put it gently, I don't think Utah's goals are aligned with winning in a significant way. I do feel like Portland is still trying to get wins, right? They're someone that has given challenging games and had big upset wins over very good teams. I think they're a team that's able to challenge the Cavs in ways that are important, like their ability to throw Kamara on Darius Garland in a matchup where there is no Donovan Mitchell to take some pressure off him. Seeing Darius do well in that matchup, that's an important data point, right? Like that's one of those things where, yeah, we don't have a game against Boston or OKC left on the schedule, but you can still get some information from some of these individual matchups. It may not be an entire team test, but individual members of the team are going to get tested. So to get this win, particularly with it being at the end of the road trip, I feel better about it. And, I think you're right. Like I just feel like it would be a little dishonest if we came on here after the Utah win and we're like really like, hooting and hollering and losing our minds over and ending the losing streak, when like we know that this team is very, very good. We know that they are capable of getting big regular season wins, and we know that they've elevated the standard for themselves. We're trying to kind of sift through this time of the season, which historically does not correlate with postseason success. How you kind of close out March and April, usually like you want to finish on the right foot and you feel better as a fan when you're finishing on the right foot and you're going into the postseason with momentum. Typically, it just doesn't tend to carry over, particularly now where the Cavs are going to get a week off after the season. As the playing goes on, they're basically going to have a week of training camp. Positive or negative momentum, you're just not going to be able to carry that forward. So it would feel a little dishonest, because we want to continue to see, okay, can Darius get back on track? Can Donovan get out of his shooting slump? Can Mobley continue to attack some of these larger defenders and work on the counters that are going to be so important in the postseason? It's just the result to me isn't as interesting as the process, and the process didn't feel as clean in Utah. I felt much, much better about the overall process and kind of the collective effort from the Cavs against the Blazers.
Yeah, I think even when the Portland game wasn't going well, it was primarily like making mistakes or not executing, but like what they were trying to do felt really, really good. And who knows, Portland has been really, really hot, but like they're still not a great team by any means. No. They're 32-41. This is not like a banner win, and maybe to some extent we are giving it a little bit more love than we would have 2 months ago when the team hadn't lost 4 games in a row. And maybe this is just a ho-hum nice win, but like I do think it felt Cavsy, and that's really, really good to see. So really all I want is for this team to feel like they've felt all year. That 4-game losing streak was frustrating in part because they didn't.
Yeah, it always feels better when things feel familiar, when everything's in place, all the support that you count on is there. And I just love always having that background support from Zoom AI Companion, Carter, because only you can do your best work. Zoom AI Companion can help you do the rest, like automatically taking notes, answering meeting questions, and helping you respond to your coworker. Available at no additional cost with eligible pay plans. Work happy with Zoom AI Companion. Noah was putting in work in the background all game against the Blazers. Evan damn Mobley. That was a terrific defensive performance.
A defensive player of the year reclaiming performance, one could ask.
Well, here's the thing. He didn't sit on a podcast and complain. Apparently that matters a whole lot more than performances. And honestly, I'm tired of this nonsense, Carter.
Terrible.
I am tired. I'm tired of the shifting standards when it comes to awards. I'm particularly when it comes to Evan Mobley. I am still fired up over that Rookie of the Year, where winning really, really matters, and then Evan Mobley misses 10 days and the Cavs slip in the standings. So they didn't win as much, so we have to give the award to someone else. Where in fact, losing those games is probably a pretty big reflection of how good Evan Mobley is. But let's give it to somebody who's part of a 6-man rotation, and the team is better with him on the bench than he is on the court. I am still not over that. I am completely blown away by this nonsense with Draymond Green, who is a terrific defender. Don't get me wrong, when he is still locked in, when he is giving effort, he is capable of playing defense at a top 5 level, as good as almost anybody in the league. But from a consistency standpoint, are you kidding me? Evan Mobley has been dominant defensively all year. He's going to give you the rebounds. He's going to give you the blocks. He's going to give you the steals. When he gets a block, it's basically like a steal because he always keeps it in play. He initiates the offense. I don't know what we're doing here. I don't understand how someone can go from a distant underdog from a betting standpoint to all the way in the lead just because he asked for it on a podcast, and then national podcasters falling in line acting like Evan Mobley is a defensive liability because they saw one highlight of James Harden having a throwback moment, and that's enough to make you think you can hunt Evan Mobley. You hunt Evan Mobley, he is going to maul you, brother.
I
feel better.
Yeah, did you feel good to get that out?
Oh yeah, I feel good, man. That was cathartic.
I think the perfect way to explain it would be a tweet when I complained about this on Twitter. 99 overall Calvin said, "If I had $1 for every time I swore Mobley had an award locked and then someone random entered the conversation in March and stole it, I would have $2. But it's weird it's happened twice, no?"
Yeah, like I understood the odds would close because Wemby's not there, Jaren Jackson it misses time, so naturally the person in second place is going to move up in the odds because it's never just one person in the race. Come on, man. Evan Mobley, particularly this year, where it is so apparent that it's not the numbers. In the past, you could make the argument, hey, Evan Mobley's defensive numbers are not as strong when Jarrett Allen isn't out there. So who's really anchoring the defense? He's playing as a power forward a lot of the time. Does he have the same defensive impact as some of these true defensive anchors? That's not the case this year. The solo Mobley numbers defensively are phenomenal. It's been honestly the driving force of that Donovan Mitchell-Evan Mobley pairing when Darius and Jarrett go to the bench. It's been the defense that has really carried that lineup.
Yeah, I mean, it is pretty jarring, pretty surprising to see that it's even in question. I hope it's a brief blip. Max Seiko in the chat says, maybe you guys should ask for $1 million since whatever you ask for on a podcast, you can get.
Hey.
You know what? We're trying. every day. And it still hasn't happened yet. So maybe that's a NBA player privilege only. But yeah, I mean, it's pretty crazy to me. And I do think just in general, it feels to me like this last 6 games or so has represented one of the sneakiest little Evan Mobley leaps that we ever did see. Like, I feel like he's been, other than that one, the game against the Clippers where I thought he was really pretty rough, like, he's been phenomenal on both sides of the floor. And really dominant in like a takeover kind of sense, you know, took over late against who was it? Against the Suns. You know, had a few huge moments on offense and defense against Portland where, he bulldozed through Denny Avdia and for that dunk. Like, he's having such loud splash plays over this last 5 or 6 games, and I feel like it's kind of just gone under the radar because the team hasn't been playing particularly well. But man, when everything else comes together, if he keeps this up, it's curtains for a lot of teams.
Yeah, and you look at those solo defensive numbers, they have a defensive rating below 110 when it's just Evan Mobley and no Jarrett Allen. And like, honestly, what he is capable of doing defensively blows my mind. Like, his ability to defend in space, the rebounding, the steals, doing so without fouling, it is at such a high level. And I continue to think back to, Rudy Gobert and the Defensive Player of the Year awards and all the accolades that he's earned as a defensive player. Having somebody at that level defensively that is also capable of running offense the way that Evan Mobley is, that is able to go out there and give you, 21 points, 12 rebounds, 4 assists, 4 blocks. Like, that's the path, man. Like, Evan Mobley, I have never felt more confident that Evan Mobley has like a ceiling of being a top 5 player. I absolutely believe that when you have someone that is Defensive Player of the Year caliber, that is also able to produce offensively at this level, that has taken, such a dramatic leap at 23 years old. Yeah, that's the path. That's the damn path to a top 5 player. And to me, the most fascinating thing about talking about this Cavs team, currently they are without a doubt a contender. They are a team that can win a championship this season. Winning a championship when your 2 best players are, 6'3", 6'1", Donovan Mitchell and Darius Garland, you need to have a high-level impact from Evan Mobley. You have to win as a collective. We're going to need DeAndre Hunter to play at a high level. We need Jarrett to step up. But it's possible. It's possible to win with this configuration. But when you forecast down the road, Evan Mobley continuing to close that gap and potentially ascending to a top 5 player, that just completely changes the math. That opens up your contending window even wider because now you have a more traditional way to go out and win a championship. And, if he's going to get shortchanged in the awards voting, which let's be clear here, I like to represent both sides. I like to hedge my bets. I like to be fair as I'm being biased as hell. If he doesn't win Defensive Player of the Year, he's robbed. Like, he absolutely deserves to win damn Defensive Player of the Year, and nothing short of robbery would stop that this year. If he doesn't win that, hopefully that's fuel. Hopefully that's continued motivation, because it's absurd to harken back to that tweet you just pulled up. It happening twice where he loses out on award and gets robbed, particularly due to podcast opinions. First time around, it was Zach Lowe giving his award voting and everyone cheating off his notes. This time, Draymond Green asking for it himself. To me, I find that to be absurd.
Yeah, and Draymond just pulled up FanDuel is -135. He has moved into even more of a favorite than he was 2 days ago.
Even though he got cooked by Bam.
So I don't know, man. I don't know. I don't know what people are seeing. I don't know where this momentum came from, other than from the least legitimate source for this to come from, and it would be very, very disappointing. But the nice thing for us as Cavs fans is we kind of win either way, because either Mobley gets appropriately recognized, for being the best defensive player in the league this year, or Mobley's furious that he wasn't recognized for being the best defensive player in the league this year. I mean, look at how thoroughly Mobley has throttled Scotty Barnes in the games following that award being taken from him at the 11th hour. And apply that to the entire league.
Yeah, well, I mean, we smoked the Warriors by 45. I don't know if he needed more motivation to smoke Draymond, but who knows? Maybe he'll get that. It just drives me nuts where you see on a national level people that cover a beat that really are close and plugged in on teams. They'll really advocate for those guys. I feel like we don't have those homers in the media. Brian Windhorst gets accused of that on the Hoop Collective, which I think is absurd. I think his analysis is much more fair and not homerific. But then he's talking about Mobley getting hunted defensively because of that Harden play. Like, that's not homer talk. That's that's trying to give a balanced view or whatever you want to call it. But Bontemps and McMahon are so low on the team that by comparison he gets called a homer. Guess who's going to be a homer? Me. Carter, I'm going to be the homer. I'm your Huckleberry, all right? I'm going to step up here. I'm going to be that homer that's necessary. And we don't have the reach to influence awards ballots, but I'm going to be here yapping away, talking about how Evan Mobley deserves to be Defensive Player of the Year.
He absolutely does. I really did think I was post caring about awards, but it just feels like such nasty work, this whole thing,
We've been so good this year, man. Like, as much as I'm complaining about some national coverage, I think in general it's been awesome. We've
gotten a very positive coverage. I do think part of me wonders. Here's an actual honest question. How much do you think the fact that the Cavs offense has been so loudly their driver this year is playing into some of this? Because their defense, per 100, is pretty much the same as last year's in the year before. Their defense has not slipped, but the thing that makes them, that an outsider perspective would say is making them special is their offense. It's I don't know. Did Sean Marion ever win Defensive Player of the Year? I don't think he did.
I don't think he did, no.
And I always kind of felt that way about the Marion on those Suns teams. Is yeah, he's phenomenal, but they're not going to give it to a team that is known for their offense. And I wonder if that's part of what is playing against him this year. Whereas, Golden State's defense is much better than Golden State's offense this year.
Yeah, I think maybe that's a factor. And
it's not a good factor, to be clear. That's not a smart, an analytical factor. I just wonder if that's part of the perception.
Yeah, I think one of the continuous issues that you deal with when you talk about awards is that people aren't putting a lot of effort into it. I don't think they dive into the data. Yeah, the defense is the same as it was last year, but what's different than last year is there is a drop off this year when you're going from Mobley to Jarrett, right? Some of that has been 3-point variance. Some of it has been field goal percentage allowed at the rim. Evan Mobley is the reason why his numbers being so much better defensively is the reason why the team's overall defense is in the same spot that it was, the year prior. So, who knows? Maybe it's the ebbs and flows of award voting, and the shifting odds are just to drive action or whatever the case may be. We'll see what it ultimately is, but the good thing is accolades do not impact results. And I don't think that there's not a lot of things that I can think of. There's not a lot of players I can think that impact results more than Evan Mobley. When you look at basically what he's done since he was drafted to a lottery team, you look at the winning percentage of when he plays as a Cleveland Cavalier. We're at a 53 win pace for his career when Evan Mobley's in the lineup. That is a guy that impacts winning. His defense has been the primary driver of impacting that winning, but now he's becoming a well-rounded player, and that's what's helping elevate him to that top 10 level.
Man, let's hope they finish the season strong, and we can flip some of these narratives back.
Let's go get that wins record. Why not?
Let's go get that wins record. They got to finish 9-1 to get it, Justin.
How the hell are they getting a back-to-back when they returned from their road trip. I was listening to Chris Federer's podcast. He mentioned that they got in home to Cleveland, like with the time change, flying back from Portland at 7:30 in the morning.
Yeah.
And then they have a back-to-back. Evan Mobley will be out for the game
home
against the
road
Spurs.
back-to-back. It's not even a home back-to-back.
Absurd. I mean, at least it's a short flight to Detroit. But man, like it's just constant travel. Mobley is out for rest against the Spurs. Ty Jerome is questionable. I thought Ty Jerome and DeAndre Hunter deserve a shout out for that Portland game. Both of them were fantastic coming in there. I found it interesting, Carter. This probably isn't a surprise, particularly with Hunter coming in off the bench and Karis LeVert going out in the DeAndre Hunter trade. But DeAndre Hunter's played more minutes with Ty than anyone else on the team. 263 minutes together with Ty Jerome. 124.5 offensive rating, plus 10.3 nets. They've been awesome together. And, you know, them providing that kind of joint scoring punch was a big part of that win against the Blazers.
Jimmy Longo just jumped into the YouTube chat and said he got into his house at 8:30 in the morning.
Oh, my goodness.
Shouts to Jimmy. If you're everyone else in the chat, please give some love to Jimmy. Almost every beautiful picture you see the Cavs tweet out. A lot of them are coming from Jimmy. So big shouts to Jimmy. Happy to see him in the chat. Can't believe he's not in a coma right now after that road trip.
He's trying to stay awake so that he can fall asleep tonight at a normal time and start getting that internal clock back on track.
Jimmy says, "Who says I'm not in a coma?" you can do that. You can be listening to the podcast laying down.
I think that's been reflected in our reviews sometimes, where people say they listen to us and they feel like they're in a coma.
But yeah, I mean, to get us back on topic, Ty and DeAndre definitely were very good. I messaged you during the game yesterday and was just like, "What is DeAndre kind of the mid-range Prince that was promised that we wanted from Karis? Because even when Karis was at his best, I never really felt like we got that." The midi king that we thought we were getting. We thought we were going to get the tough shot 17-footer guy. And I always felt like Karis' best games were when he was killing it at the rim and from three. And I'm sure that's almost always going to be the case with your best games. But it feels like DeAndre is able to use that extra height, that extra size to take the bump, get set, and have a really clean look at the rim on some of these middies.
Yeah, and I think it's a real benefit to have someone that's that long and capable of getting that shot off, because that's a playoff shot. Like that mid-range kind of pull-up, you need to be able to have someone that can take and make those, because often that's what the defense is giving you. And thinking back to those finals teams that we had with the Cavs, that was a big part of, the shot diet for Kyrie. Kyrie being that mid-range assassin helped reopen up the paint. It helped open up the perimeter. And having someone that has the length that DeAndre Hunter has to hit those tough shots, that is something that gives me confidence heading into the playoffs. That's something that we haven't had in the past, where, you really were relying on two shorter guards to generate all of the offense. And, if Mobley was being passive or Jarrett wasn't having a good game, you just didn't have that front court initiation. So to have DeAndre Hunter capable of doing that, and then Ty Jerome, who's just going to take shots no matter what, like those are two archetypes that when I think back to teams that have won the championship, that have contended for championships, those are really, really important archetypes. Those are things that I can point back to. I can think of, Jason Terry having those Ty Jerome type games, and the fact that he's done it for the entirety of this regular season with, a few shooting lulls, but that continued confidence throughout, I think that that's a really, really encouraging sign.
Brother, I don't know what a significantly tougher shot diet for Ty Jerome looks like. I mean, like he's like, I remember earlier in the year, he was in 99th percentile for like difficulty of his shots, and like, it looks like it. Numbers match.
Doesn't feel easy.
Nope. And one thing I'll say on DeAndre, just a reminder, just because we haven't really talked about it since the trade, he has been a playoff riser, which is the kind of guy you really want. He's averaged 16 points, and 5 boards in his playoff career, slashing a 48 and 48 from the field and 40 from 3. Like,
yeah,
he is a player who has done well in that setting in tough matchups. So really excited to see how he kind of fits in to this rotation as they move into the postseason.
Yeah, I am very curious about, I continue to keep an eye on how he's fitting into the rotation, because the one thing that's really surprised me is that he is playing primarily as a power forward. Even with him coming in off the bench, I kind of expected a little more, even if he's coming off the bench, that it would be with Dean Wade, right? Okay, we're going to have them as our 3-4. We're going to play a more versatile defensive lineup, but we're still going to maintain size. And one thing that Kenny has been talking about in the post games is that he wants to continue to have an increased emphasis on the possession battle, because so often that is one of the most important factors in the postseason. When you go into a series against the Boston Celtics, that's going to be something that really matters. One of the ways that you can mitigate any talent gap that exists or experience gap that exists is by mitigating those mistakes, by making sure you give yourself those extra possessions. And the thing that I find really interesting about him playing primarily as a power forward is I think that does kind of work against, that rebounding goal. DeAndre Hunter has had times where he's rebounded well, but he is not a particularly strong rebounder. And when he's playing as the power forward, the trickle down effect of that is you're playing smaller everywhere else throughout the lineup. And particularly when you look at the fact that he's played more minutes with Ty Jerome than anyone else, we've already talked about how playing Ty means alongside one of the guards means that, you have 2 guys that are susceptible to being attacked by perimeter players offensively. But with Sam continuing to play as much as he is, you're playing 3 guard lineups with a power forward that isn't particularly strong on the defensive glass. And that gets into what we were talking about before, where Jarrett gets a disproportionate amount of the blame when he's playing with a power forward that isn't a particularly strong defensive rebounder and 3 guards on the perimeter.
Yeah, you're right. And it's a little concerning. The Cavs on the season are down to 22nd in defensive rebound rate. Prior to the All-Star break, they were 18th. After the All-Star break, they are 25th. And, we went into that New York series 2 years ago, and we did say we're confident going into the series, but one thing that could really hurt us is the boards. Mm-hmm. At that point, New York was the best offensive rebound rate in the league, in the best offensive rebound rate team in the league. My brain just collapsed on itself. And the Cavs were, after the All-Star break, by a mile the worst defensive rebound rate team in the league. And they're not that. The difference between 25th and in 17th or 15th is like a percentage point or 2. Mm-hmm. So it's not like disaster town, but you look at their peers post All-Star break in terms of bad defensive rebound rate: Philly, Washington, San Antonio, Brooklyn, Portland, Orlando, Atlanta, New Orleans, Charlotte. Yeah. Those are their peers in the defensive rebound. Those are the people around them in the defensive rebound rate. So like, this is, I think, I'm willing to say it is like a real concern, not a death knell, burn it all down, we're screwed. But it is a thing that you really want to see them figure out a way to address, whether it's in the lineups they're playing, to your point, or just playing better.
Yeah. And to me, the primary concern is that when I look at the most likely opponents, that's not a strength for any of them, right? Like the New York Knicks are not a big offensive rebounding team like they used to be, even with the return of Mitchell Robinson. The Boston Celtics aren't particularly strong there. The Oklahoma City Thunder aren't going to make you pay there. So I don't think it's going to materialize in the same way. But the concern to me is I do believe that this is something that can be changed with personnel decisions by playing a different lineup. I think
DeAndre at the 3 and Mordine at the 4 does feel like if you had to do a one sentence solution, it's probably that, right?
Yeah, right. And even if you're talking about, all right, well, we're going to play some Hunter at the 4, but we're going to have Isaac Okoro out there and we're going to have Max Strus out there, right? Guys that are high energy guys. I've loved how Okoro's been hitting the glass. That's different than playing that 3-guard lineup. And I do think, the tension point here continues to be Sam Merrill, who, Kenny Atkinson inserted him in the starting lineup against Portland. I thought it was very similar to what he did with Wade in the starting lineup against Sacramento, where Wade had been in a bit of a slump. Sam has been in a slump lately, and that really got them going. And the tough thing
was Sam good, by the way. Oh, my gosh.
Sam was terrific. And, the tension point is that's someone that deserves minutes. That's someone that's been playing really well. When you look at the lineup data, like, as much as I'll say, from a theory standpoint and how it feels on paper, the 3-guard lineups, I don't love it. When you look at the actual lineup data, terrific defensively. The numbers with Ty Jerome are phenomenal. I look at the offensive rebounds allowed with Sam Merrill at the 2 versus Sam Merrill at the 3, and it's a less than 1% difference. It's not like that has been kind of the thing that's driving it. If I look at DeAndre Hunter at the 3 with Jarrett Allen and Evan Mobley, it's very small sample. It's under 100 possessions, but they're in the 0th percentile in terms of offensive rebound rate. They give up a lot of them. If I add Dean Wade to the DeAndre Hunter minutes, it's 210 possessions. It's only in the 7th percentile in offensive rebound rate. It's not like Dean automatically fixes that issue. But my issue truly is that I just don't think that we have a lot of minutes with these guys. I think that we can play different styles. I think particularly when it comes to things like defense, understanding rebounding assignments, those sorts of things, you need to have familiarity. You have to have continuity. It requires communication. And without the necessary reps in the regular season, I don't think you can necessarily build that. And you're just running low on games. So you're stuck in a tough situation where, I don't envy Kenny Atkinson. You're dealing with someone that's very deserving of minutes where the lineup data is all phenomenal when it comes to Sam Merrill. But then when you're trying to anticipate potential pain points in the playoffs, it may necessitate going into a different direction with the rotation. It's a really, really tough thing to balance here. The case seems very, very easy on paper. In reality, and particularly when you're talking about a coaching staff that does, value the data makes it so much harder because it just works every other way.
Yeah, and I think it's almost one of the spots where the Cavs are a little punished by how easy the season's been.
Yeah.
Where it's really, really hard to find high minute lineups that get their ass kicked on either end of the floor. Like, even like, oh, that lineup isn't so good. They only posted a 114 offensive rating. And if they'd made 2 more threes, it would be a 117 offensive rating. So everything kind of flattens out. I've talked a lot about how, it's easier to analyze things from this seat and probably from a coach's seat too when you lose, because you have a dead body to autopsy. It's a lot harder when all these lineups have been serving you really, really well this year. So it's funny, we've had so much fun, Justin, extolling the virtues of our 48 minutes of hell and how it sucks to play us because every lineup we play is good. Well, now when we're starting to get really, really playoff focused, we don't have good data to base our opinions on, or we don't have different data. It's not to say the data is not good just because it's not what aligns with us, but it's really, really hard to try to like split the hairs on these opinions when the data set is so samey.
And here's the other tricky thing. When we're talking about trying different things, right? Whether it's moving DeAndre Hunter to the starting lineup, which, I continue to talk about how good the Max Strus lineup is, but just to get minutes with DeAndre Hunter and the core four. Like that seems to be the only way you can go with it, whether it's that as an example, whether it is changing up the rotation to give Isaac Okoro more minutes or playing Dean Wade along with DeAndre Hunter so that you have more size in the front court. Anytime you're talking about one of those changes, you're talking about moving away from a lineup combination that's worked really well, that yields consistently good results at a time where the team overall is struggling, where, you know, Darius Garland and Donovan Mitchell have been going through slumps, and, you know, the things that you can traditionally count on to work are no longer, you know, supporting you as a backbone. So we're saying make these adjustments, these tweaks, experiment for the postseason at a time where, hey, this canoe is starting to leak a little bit of water here, and we're tired. I'm not in the mood to experiment. Let's stick with some bread and butter here. Let's make it through the cold hard winter, and then, you know, when you have the postseason, let's mess around in the first round. We have a warm up series basically that we can, you know, go through and maybe make some of these tweaks. It's a tough ask, and I just want to communicate that I understand it's a tough ask, and I don't think that this stuff is as straightforward as it feels even in my own head.
Yeah, absolutely. And I do wonder, now that they have given up ground that will likely be hard to reclaim in the overall 1 seed race.
Yeah.
And, you know, obviously, and Boston's right on their heels all of a sudden. They're 5 games back, thank God. The Cavs won to get them back to 5 games. And I looked at that standings, I saw 4.5. I was like, oh my gosh, because it just felt so over, and still really should be. It would be really bad to be caught. But I do wonder if once the 1 seed is confirmed, you know, let's say they go win their next 3 games or something, like, and Boston loses 1, and it's like all but done. I wonder if that's where we see an actual change in their strategy the rest of the year, or if they're just still trying to win games and just get through, see if they're trying to get to that wins record, and all that stuff. I wonder where their priorities are going to lie now that one piece of the puzzle, which is the number 1 overall seed, feels pretty out of reach.
Yeah, it's going to be really interesting, right? Like, I think this falls into the category of us continuing to learn more about Kenny Atkinson, and you know, I continue to really appreciate how transparent he is in these post-game availabilities, because we're not only learning about Kenny Atkinson, we're learning what he's learning, right? Like he's really communicating, hey, this is what I'm trying to accomplish. This is, you know, this is the thought process behind what I'm doing. I just really appreciate that insight. And, you know, when it comes to DeAndre Hunter, yes, I'd love to see him start, just because I want to get those reps with the starters. The limited sample that we have on that is great, but, you know, it's 53 possessions. It's not even really worth, you know, discussing the results when it comes to that. We do have some, you know, continued data on how it's working in the staggered pairings, because obviously with him coming off the bench, he's playing a lot of minutes with Darius, and he's playing a lot of minutes with Donovan. That lineup with Darius, Jarrett, and DeAndre is kind of the core 3 there. Has a 126.6 offensive rating, plus 15.5 in 263 possessions, so a pretty healthy sample there. With Donovan and Evan, not as good. 128.3 offensive rating and only a plus 1.4 net. So the defense is really struggling in those minutes in 212 possessions. You know, in theory, that combination of Donovan and Evan has been phenomenal defensively this year. It's been, you know, considerably better on the defensive end than the Darius and Evan, Jarrett one. So adding DeAndre Hunter shouldn't make it worse defensively. So I think that's probably a shooting variance kind of thing. But, you know, DeAndre is someone that you can plug into a whole bunch of lineups. And I think continuing to go to that well of playing him with Ty Jerome has been one of the things that they can really count on, particularly in a time where the starters haven't been as consistent as they have or as they were earlier in the season.
Yeah, man. It's going to be a fun end of the year, man. I think I went from I've gone through quite an emotional gamut. I feel like the last couple weeks of like everything's great, I have nothing left to learn, to oh crap, like are we falling off in a way that is meaningful, or is this just we're not in a good, we're just not in the right headspace kind of slump? And now it's like I'm just looking for playoff indicators wherever I can, looking for any canaries in the coal mine that'll tell me something about this team 3-4 weeks from now. And time will tell. I still would love to see them go for that wins record, for the franchise record, but I think it's probably more important that they're healthy, whole, and generally trending up on the way in.
Yeah, totally agree. It's remarkable, man. Like the season's kind of flown by. Maybe time flies when you're having fun. But it's crazy that there's only 10 games left, and by the next time we podcast, there'll only be 7 games left, man. We got three games in 4 nights, all over again, man, and travel between all of them. I can't believe that after this road trip, we have a travel back-to-back. And not only that, after the travel back-to-back, you have an afternoon matinee game on a Sunday against the Clippers. What have we done? Adam Silver, what have we done to you? Why do you do this to us? I want to know. I really, really want to know. When we talk about that wins record, if we go 3-0 over this stretch, I'm going to feel a lot better about what we're capable of pulling off those last 7 games. So hopefully they can get the win.
For what it's worth, before I know you're getting ready to wrap us, but for what it's worth, if on the Evan Mobley agenda, you got 4 national games left in these final 10. These are going to be the kinds of things that can turn the tide. Like we saw Mobley moved from second behind JJJ to a definitive favorite for Defensive Player of the Year after he sunned him on national TV. They're going to have a marquee matchup with the Knicks on April 2nd. I don't know if Brunson will be back by then, but
hopefully.
But yeah, I mean, it's a great opportunity for these guys to put one final stamp on what's been one of the best seasons in the history of the franchise.
Yeah, and the sweet thing about the awards race when it comes to Evan Mobley winning Defensive Player of the Year, or really any Cavs awards, is you just know that the Cavs have to work 5 times harder to win any of those awards. If Evan Mobley has one bad defensive play in any of those national TV games, that's going to get held against them. Draymond can get cooked for a game against Bam Adebayo. He can get cooked in any game. But all it takes is one play for the odds to shift in a big way. You know what? I have a real takeaway, though, Carter. Evan Mobley, come on the podcast. Because apparently complaining on the podcast is all you need to do to win an award.
We'll see you here, Ev. Come on over.
Maybe I should be advocating for podcast awards. Maybe I should be complaining more about that kind of stuff and speaking that into existence. Getting us some awards, Carter. Where are our accolades?
God, we need them. We really do.
Yeah, my ego is totally in check as is. So
validate me, baby.
I'm sure it would stay in a healthy place if we ever did win an award.
Well, we won't, so no problem.
Very, very true. The only award I need, the only accolades I need is the awesome support we get from our listeners. I appreciate everyone hanging out in the chat on YouTube. Make sure you guys like and subscribe. Click that notification bell so you know when we're going live. If you're listening via podcast and you want to support us, leave us a rating, leave a review, subscribe, unsubscribe, resubscribe, and help cook those books. If you want to be part of Chase Down's exclusive Discord chats, send a screenshot of their review to chasedownpod@gmail.com. However you choose to support us, we really do appreciate it. Make sure you guys are staying safe out there. Until next time, yo Cavs.